Hi, and welcome to the Caterpillar Cross Stitch YouTube channel. My name's Ford from Son of a Stitch, and over the last few weeks we've been talking about what to do with your project once it's completed. And that's all been building up to this week where I'm going to show you my method for putting a cross stitch project into a frame. Now, I like to buy used frames to reduce my impact and to keep it as inexpensive as possible, so I'm going to show you the techniques that I use to get the best results out of that. I'm pretty sure I would get kicked off YouTube if I didn't admonish you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and smash that little bell icon. So make sure you do all of those things so that I don't have to talk about it anymore. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future video, leave that in the comments down below, and I'll see if I can get a chance to answer it for you. Now, like I mentioned, I like to use used items whenever possible in order to reduce my environmental impact, and because I'm, let's call it thrifty. I actually got this frame used in a thrift store, and I think I paid about $1.50 for it, which is really, really excellent. And I have a project that I'm going to frame in it. So let me show you that. Now, I've already sized this up to make sure that it's going to fit and to compare the colors. I really like the way the white frame sets off the pink fabric here. This is a pattern that I designed. If you have an inkling to design your own patterns, make sure you check out Love It, Stitch It, because that can give you the power to do that. And this is a piece of fabric that I actually hand dyed myself. I'm going to be making a video in the near future about the technique that I used so that you can give that a try as well. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get our project washed so that it's nice and clean and that our oils and residue from the stitching process don't cause it to discolor over time. Go and check out the washing video that I posted not long ago. And then we want to press it or iron it. So I also showed you my technique for doing that in the recent past as well. So go check that video out as well. Pause this one, open that in a new window so that you can come back and pick up with me if you haven't already done that with your project. So then the next thing we need to do is get our mat board sized correctly. Now, I buy these mat boards in packs of multiple different colors, and I'll put a link to those in the description. The color of the mat board can make a really big difference in how the project looks. So if I were to put it on a dark colored backing, it would look one way, but notice, especially over here, how much the color changes when I put a light colored backing behind it. So in general, I want to use a light colored board with a light colored project, and I want to use a dark colored board with a dark colored project. Especially if it's black or if it's white, then you really want those to match. Now, I don't have any pink mat boards, so I'm just going to use the white one here, and I actually really like the effect of how it lightens that up a bit. So I'm going to be using the white side of this mat board, even though it does have a colored side as well. But I need to cut this down to the size of my frame, so I need to take some measurements. Now, when you buy a frame, the size that it is labeled with generally is not quite the same as the actual opening size of the frame. So this frame, for instance, was labeled as an 8x6 frame, but the actual size of the opening is only 7.5 inches by 5.5 inches. Usually you lose 1/4 of an inch on each side. The reason that is because we've got this lip on the inside here. We need to make sure that when we put our piece in there, it doesn't just fall out. So we have a bit of an overhang on the inside of the frame. So I'm going to cut my mat board to be just a tiny bit smaller than the back opening of the frame rather than the front opening of the frame. So this is where I'm going to take my measurements. Now, for this kind of precision work, I always work in metric, which I know is very un-American of me. So I'm going to go 205 millimeters by 155 millimeters. So now that I've got those measurements, I'm going to hang on to those because I'll need those again later when I'm cutting my project down. But that tells me how big I want to cut my mat board. Now, I usually want to shave a couple of millimeters off of that just to make sure that it actually fits in there. So I'm actually going to go for like 202 by 152. And then I make sure to write down what my measurements are so that I remember what that is. So I'll take my mat board and I will make a mark at 202. And then I'll make another one at the same distance on the other side, 202. And then I'll usually measure once more in the middle so that if I've made a mistake, when I try to draw a line, I won't be able to. One of the points will get missed. But those points line up pretty well, so I'll draw my line. Now, I need to measure, what was it? 152 millimeters. So, I'll measure along this line. I'll measure on this edge. And I'll measure one more somewhere in the middle as my fail-safe. Now I should be able to draw a line straight through all three of those marks. And I can. So that tells me my measurements are probably accurate. So now I want to cut this down. And I do have a mat cutter, but I don't have it at my studio. It's at home. So I'm just going to use a craft knife for this. But I need a cutting mat so that I don't scratch up my beautiful table that I shoot all my videos on. So what I'm going to want to do is put my metal ruler against the line that I've made, and I put my ruler on the inside so that it is protecting the piece of mat board that I'm actually going to use. That way, if my knife wanders off, I don't cut into the piece I'm going to use, I cut into the piece I'm going to be removing. And I'm going to want my heavy-duty handle and a nice tapered point blade. Now you can use almost anything that's good and sharp for this. If you have a carpet knife or a retractable razor knife, but make sure that you push down on your ruler with your extra hand. Assuming you have an extra hand, I'm not sure how. Assuming that you have an extra hand, I'm not sure how I would do this if I only had one. And it's usually going to take a couple of passes. Then we'll do the same thing on the other side. And again, put your ruler on the inside of the cut so that if your blade slips off, it scratches up the part you're not going to use. Now it takes a couple passes there again, and usually I have a couple of spots I need to clean up a little bit. Yeah. Just very gently cut through that last little bit of paper there. Now this edge is actually going to be hidden by the frame, by the lip of that frame. So if I have a little bit of unevenness, it's not the end of the world, but I do want it to be as neat as possible. So now I've got my piece of mat board. And before I proceed, I double check to make sure that it fits in my frame and that it doesn't fall out of the frame. And it looks like we're good there. So now I want to cut down my project. I need my cross-stitch project to be the size of this mat board. So there are a couple of ways that you can do that. But the best is, again, some measuring. And in this case, we're going to need to measure and do math. So let's measure what size my mat board ended up. 202, that's perfect, by 152. Hey, I did pretty good. So my mat board wound up right where I needed it to. Now let's measure my project. At its widest point, it is 172. And at its tallest point, it is 118. So I want this to be centered in my frame. So I need to figure out the differences between my mat size and my project size, and then put half of that difference on each side, top and bottom. So side to side, my difference is 30, which divided by 2 is 15. So I need to measure out from the left and right side 15 millimeters. And top and bottom, my difference is 34. Which divided by 2 is 17 millimeters. So on the sides, I need to measure out 15 millimeters, and that's where I make my cut. On top and bottom, I need to measure out 17 millimeters, and that's where I'll make my cut. Now, I'm just going to be cutting this off, so I don't mind actually marking it with a pencil. Pencil is virtually impossible to remove from fabric, so I wouldn't use a pencil in any other circumstance than this. And I'm kind of rounding that position to the nearest row of holes in the eta, because rather than try to cut a straight line, I am going to cut along a row of holes. It helps keep me aligned with the project. So now I just need some scissors, which I did not bring. But fear not, through the magic of editing, I have my scissors. Okay. So I'm just going to cut right along the line that already exists in the fabric. Makes it much easier to keep track of. This part is always very scary. And while I'm doing that, I want to recommend that you join the Caterpillar Cross Stitch VIP Stitch Club. As soon as you join, you'll get 10% off your first order, you'll get a digital download of our top 10 cross-stitching tips, and you'll get an ebook with 8 free cross-stitch patterns in it. So hit that link down there in the description to get all of those great perks. Okay, now that that's all cut out, I'll just make sure that that fits my mat. Now the next thing I need is to get that thing to lay flat against my mat board. And what I use for that is this. It's a spray repositionable adhesive. Now if you're getting something like this, you want to make sure that it says acid-free or archival or photo safe. If it doesn't, it'll have compounds in it that will discolor your project over time, and you don't want that. So make sure that it says something like that. Now you definitely do not want to use this product indoors unless you have a fume vent hood or something like that. Otherwise this glue mist just settles over everything in your house and you'll never finish cleaning it up. So I'm going to take this outside to do that. But it's 100 degrees, like 38 Celsius outside today, and I don't want to lug the camera out there. So I'm just going to go out there and do that, and I'll give you some tips for it when I get back. Now, watching YouTube videos is a really great way to learn more about anything really, but in this case, cross stitch. But it's even better if you can be a member of a community. So what I would do is go and join the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Facebook group, or follow the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Instagram. There are tens of thousands of stitchers in those spaces with a cumulative hundreds of thousands of years of experience. And so it's a really tremendous resource to have just at your fingertips for the clicking. So I highly recommend you go and check those out. Okay, I've put a thin layer of my spray adhesive onto my mat board, which I don't know why I'm showing it to you. You can't see it, it's clear. But a couple of things. Like I said, do it outside. Don't try to do it in your house, trust me. I do recommend putting a piece of cardboard or something behind it because it does still leave a sticky residue even outdoors, so you might accidentally make your garden all sticky. And after you're done spraying your project, the instructions on the can say to turn it upside down and spray it for a few seconds until glue stops coming out of the nozzle. That clears the nozzle of glue so that it will still be able to work next time you use it. You can get a lot of use out of one of these cans if you remember to do that. They put extra propellant in there in order to enable you to do that, so don't worry about wasting the propellant. It's designed for that. So now that my mat board is all sticky, all I want to do is lay my project down, try to square it up a little bit, especially if it's linen, because linen is very flexible in this way, and then just drop the mat board right down onto the center of it. Now, this glue is repositionable, so if you do mess up or wind up with it crooked, then you can peel it back up and change that. That's part of why I use this method instead of buying those sticky mounting boards that you can get at the craft store. They're way too sticky. The one time I tried to do it, I went to pull it back up and it actually yanked my stitches out of the fabric. I did not like it. So this is the method that I've settled on for that reason, to give me a little bit of workability. So then I want to just smooth my project out onto the mat board. This way also, if I ever change my mind about how I want to frame it, I'll be able to just peel it right back off of there. So then I'm just going to drop that down into my frame. Now, because I made my mat board a little bit smaller than my frame, I have a little bit of play here. So if it's not quite straight or if it's not quite aligned, I can scooch it just a little bit to get it where I want it. That is looking beautiful. So now we just need to make sure it stays there. And there are a couple of ways that you can do that. You can just drive some small nails into here and then bend them up against the mat board. If you have a staple gun, you can hold it a little bit away from the surface and drive the staple, and that will leave a staple that sticks out. Personally, I'm extra, so I went and got myself one of these. This is a dual point framing driver. So all I need with this is just I'll put a link to this in the description as well. It's a very nice tool to have if you do a lot of your own framing. It's definitely saved me way more than I spent on it over having custom framing done. And even once I'm finished, if I'm not quite happy with it, because these points are flexible, I can stick a fingernail or a screwdriver underneath there and pry those up, easily take my project out, adjust it, change out what project is in the frame, etc. That's why they're flexible points. So there we go. We went from a finished project in an empty frame to a beautifully framed project that's ready to display. Now, obviously, a professional framer is probably not going to like what I've done here, and they would take way more care and be a lot more precise in the way that they frame a project. But I was just going for a quick and dirty and reversible framing project for a gift using as inexpensive materials as possible that most people would have available to them. So that was my primary objective here. If you enjoyed what I did, make sure you give the video a like and leave me a comment. I want to thank you so much for watching. For Caterpillar Cross Stitch, my name is Ford, and I will see you next time.
Hi, have you heard about Love It Stitch It yet? You can design and shop the cross-stitch patterns you've always wanted. Love It Stitch It is an easy-to-use design tool and exclusive cross-stitch marketplace, giving you the freedom to create, sell and shop all in one place. You can design anything that you like, add text, upload and convert pictures and artwork. You can design the cross-stitch patterns of your dream. You can download them for personal use, or you can upload them onto the marketplace, designed by cross-stitchers for cross-stitchers, jam-packed with some gorgeous cross-stitch patterns from designers all over the world. If you're not interested in designing or selling, that's totally fine too. Just visit the marketplace and you can shop from hundreds of beautiful cross-stitch patterns so you can pick your next project. Are you already a cross-stitch designer, but maybe you're fed up of other marketplaces, maybe not getting the sales that you deserve, maybe not getting your patterns seen as much as you'd like? Then let us help. You can easily register for free and get uploading your PDF patterns with absolutely no fees whatsoever. Let us then market your gorgeous designs that you've put all of your work into to over 185,000 dedicated cross-stitchers from all over the world. We will absolutely do our best to get your patterns seen and into the right hands of people that we know will absolutely love stitching them. As a designer, you can easily list your PDF patterns for sale, no matter which software you use to design them. Our job is to make cross-stitch design accessible to all. There's nothing to upgrade, there's nothing to download. It's really easy to use and beginner friendly. We also wanted to create the marketplace to bring sellers and buyers together so that it's really easy and such an enjoyable experience to shop all of the high quality verified designs on the platform, but also to give those amazing designers a place to really showcase their creativity. So visit loveitstitchit.com today and register for free. Stitch what you love and free your creativity.